The Kurultai of 1207 named Temujin Genghis Khan. He had united the nomads of the eastern steppe. If he wished to truly be a universal ruler, then he would have to use the advantages he had and overcome his disadvantages. He already had a tough and aggressive army. Unlike their sedentary neighbours, the steppe nomads were mobile and fast-moving. Genghis Khan reinforced this advantage by requiring his soldiers to wear light scaled armour with silk underlay. Arrows generally cause more damage being pulled out than going in. Arrows don't cut through silk underlay, so this helped Mongol soldiers stay healthier than their enemies. The Mongols, like many steppe nomads before them, were known for their horse archers. They sported a composite bow which was made of horn, wood and tendon. The composite construction allowed the bow to be much shorter than their European counterparts, whilst being more powerful. The Mongols trained from an early age at using these composite bows, so much so that they could shoot accurately and continuously from a horse at full gallop and in all directions. To gain accuracy, they would ride on high stirrups and time their shots to the moment when all four of the horse's hooves were off the ground. They also had heavily armoured cavalry, which were equipped with long lances and curved swords which were perfect for cutting from horseback. These units were used as shock troops or to chase down fleeing enemies. Genghis Khan spent a lot of time training his soldiers to use their strength and use complicated maneuvers. This training made them much more effective and well practiced than their enemies. This highlights how the Mongols overcame their disadvantages through training. Before 1207, the Mongols were disorganised, undisciplined and rarely well led. Genghis Khan reorganised the horde along decimal lines. An arban was a unit of 10 men. 10 arbans made a zun, which was 100 troops. 10 zuns made a mingan, or 1,000 troops. And 10 mingans made a tumen, of 10,000. Each unit was led along meritocratic lines. Who you were didn't matter as much as your ability. If you were an effective leader of an arban, you could go up to lead a zun, or a mingan, or even a tumen. This was augmented by strong discipline. If one member of a team ran away or disobeyed orders, everyone in the unit was killed. Genghis Khan's new organisation, coordination, discipline and leadership allowed the Mongols to be much more effective than their enemies, both tactically and strategically. Tactics are the small level stuff, how small units fight and beat the enemy in front of them. For the Mongols, they dealt with heavier enemies by using movement. The archers would stay out of reach and break up the enemy ranks. When the enemy had been weakened, then the Mongol shock troops would attack them from the side or the rear, causing panic. The Mongols treated the enemy almost like the animals they herded on the steppe. They would often surround the enemy, but leave a gap called a golden bridge. Fleeing enemies were easier to kill than ones who stood and fought, so when the enemy spotted a gap and tried to escape, the Mongols would cut them down. The most notable Mongol tactic, though, was to use false retreats. They would fight for a while and then turn and run screaming. But this was not an actual retreat. The screaming Mongols would allow the enemy to chase them straight into an ambush, where the surprised enemy was easily destroyed. Genghis didn't just train his army tactically though, he also taught his commanders how to think and fight strategically. Strategy is the big stuff, how armies move, where they fight and what units go where. A good strategic commander will keep their enemies off guard or in weak positions. In the Mongol case, they would split their armies as they moved. They would allow them to live off the land, move longer distances and ravage more land as they went. If their communication was good enough, and it was, when they came across a large enemy force, they would recombine their separate armies to attack from all directions. Each Mongol soldier would have 2 to 4 horses to keep them fresh and fast moving. In some cases, the Mongols would make dummies for the spare horses to make the unit look bigger than it actually was. In the same way, they would drag branches behind them to kick up dust or light extra fires at night. All of this kept the enemy off guard and confused about where the main Mongol force actually was. Genghis Khan also taught his commanders to make strong use of scouts and spies to gather reliable information about where the enemy was, what they were likely to do, and how to defeat them. For Genghis, it wasn't about fighting hard, it was about fighting smart. If the spies reported the odds were against the Mongols, he would simply ride out of reach and attack where the enemy was weak. All of this combined to make the Mongol horde into a capable, disciplined, and above all, smart fighting force. Sedentary populations would now face a threat unlike anything they had before, and one by one, they would be defeated. What material did Mongol troops wear under their armour? What weapon allowed the Mongols to shoot effectively from horseback? How many troops were in a tumen? What were some key Mongol tactics? What were some strategic tricks used by the Mongols? What are 3 key words you could use to describe the Mongol horde?